mai kalai kai kina makapuo hualalai o ʻīlili ke kukono kalai ka mauna uliuli Yo pu kamakani ke haume ka uano e aku aloha no kona Wahi Wa pepe e kala wana pele ke kulo Kahaluʻu O kahu kolo mai luna o kala o nau kapule na mako kawaiora.
In our mele, in our ʻoli, we have a line that goes
Ua kaua makapu o kalo e uala maka e kalo maka e po uli maya e puna ko maka e wi e avaka lau lono.
Which are the ʻuala, the sweet potato, the kalo, the taro, the maya, the banana, the uhi, the yam, and the ava. In many of our mo'olelo, here in Kona, we attribute lono to being that deity, to being that akua who had brought these plants here to Hawaii, to Kona, and provided that resource to the community.
We look to our past, we look to our mo'olelo of this place, the stories of this place that teach us that something different is not only possible, but that it existed before. You know, the blueprint has already been created in a different time, and we can draw upon that to create the kind of abundance we hope to see in this place in the future.
Hawaii was a sustainable system, yeah, during that time, during the mid 1700s, and we know that because of the surplus of food that they had when all of the foreigners were coming to Hawaii and what was documented. We know that they were able to sustain their society as well as provide that access to visitors that were coming to Hawaii.
The ways in which our kupuna cultivated food and cultivated the landscape in abundance was in ways that were not extractive and were not dependent upon inputs that, you know, can be harmful to our soil, can be harmful to our water and to our Aina and our ecosystems as a whole, and to ourselves as kanaka. I ka wā mamua, ka wā mahope, you know, that in the future is the past, and that our past informs our future. One of my kumu in college, he said, you know, if people all over the world have origin stories and creation stories, and he says, but Hawaiians, we don't have a creation story. You know, we have a genealogy.
One of the main mo'olelo we go to is the mo'olelo of Haloa.
Ho'ohoku Kalani and Wakea have a child together, and his name is Haloa Nakalau Kapalili. And when Haloa Nakalau Kapalili was born, he was stillborn, keiki alu alu. And in their mourning of their stillborn child, they bury him next to their house, next to their hale. And from the place that they bury him, a plant grows forth, and that plant is the first kalo plant. And she gives birth to a second child, and this child they name after the first. They name this son of theirs Haloa, and this Haloa, he's a person, he becomes a chief, he becomes what many of us Kanaka consider to be our first human ancestor.
What the kauna, or what the underlying meaning of this mo'olelo is that as an older sibling, Haloa is the Aina, so this Aina is our older sibling. And that's my relationship with the Aina, is that this is my sibling, this is my ohana. So if I can pay attention to what the Aina needs and what the Aina likes, I know that I will be returned with that security of food, with that security of shelter, and with that security of relationship, yeah?
You have a whole history of our food systems that fed our people for hundreds of generations without any external inputs be completely replaced by monocrop industrial agriculture.
When the majority of our exports are agricultural resources, it's baffling to assume that we're not able to provide those agricultural resources to support ourselves as a community here in Hawaii.
The word itself, our name for our land, Aina, that which feeds and nourishes us. If our Aina is not able to provide us with food, then we as people are not behaving properly in relation with our Aina.
All year round, we're worrying about this threat of what could happen if the barges don't come. It's not just the pandemic that we would have to worry about. There's tsunamis, there's hurricanes, there's forest fires, there's all of these different threats. 98% of our food is being imported. So if there's any disruption in when our food is being imported through these barges, that's 1 million people without food.
Really good about talking about how food insecure Hawaii is right now. How much of our food is imported, how dependent we are on external resources. But we're not really good about talking about what got us to that place. Those root causes are the place that we need to start when we're talking about trying to create systemic change on the scale of, our whole Aina, our whole archipelago. We know that one aspect of a thriving Hawaii that is able to be food sovereign means that we need to be able to be cultivating our food at the scale that our kupuna are cultivating food at least at that scale, if not more today. How do we do that on the scale of an island? We need to figure out how to do it at the scale of an ahupua'a first.
And so here at Kahaluʻu Kūāhewa, we're trying to be that example. We're trying to be that model of Wahi kupuna stewardship. And a Wahi kupuna is a sacred place. It's a kupuna place. It's an ancestral place which we steward and we take care of. So I guess to understand Wahi kupuna stewardship, we have to understand what land management is like in Hawaii through an indigenous perspective.
Aloha Aina, can be literally translated as love for our land, love for our Aina. But Aloha Aina really is not in an abstract. When I talk about Aloha Aina, I'm thinking about my relationship that I have specifically with this place, with this Aina. And just like a relationship that we have with a loved family member, a beloved elder or ancestor in our own family or parent, that kind of intimate relationship that we have with a place, that's the foundations of Aloha Aina. Well-being of Aina is always placed in a primary position when we're making decisions. Part of being intentional about how we engage with our Aina and our community is really being intentional about what we're planting. That's what we've really tried to restore on this Aina, was this system of agroforestry that our kupuna practice here in this place specifically. I think the most important lessons that we can derive from our kupuna is their ability to adapt and their tradition of ingenuity. That's rooted in place and rooted in a set of values and principles.
Oftentimes when we're here at Kahalu'u, we try to imagine from an indigenous perspective, how would we use these tools? How would our kupuna have used these tools? If Kamehameha had a tractor back in the day, how would he be using it, to better the life for his community, for his ohana here in Hawaii?
Are we planting things that are reflective of what our climate is now and what we project our climate to look like in the next 20 to 50 years? Is this what's best for our Aina?
Because when the Aina is happy, we're happy. But when the Aina is not happy, we can't survive on this land.
When we think about restoring food sovereignty in Hawaii, it begins in our families, and then it radiates out to our communities, and then radiates out to our districts and our island, and then beyond to our whole Aina, to our whole archipelago.
Eventually we can have these different kihapai where people in our community, different ohana, can have these kihapai and grow the food that they need to survive, as well as know where that food is coming from.
I know that I may not see it with my own eyes in my lifetime, but I'm confident that the work that we've been doing over the last decade and that we will continue to do until my last breath and beyond, that our children and our grandchildren and our descendants, generations to come, will eat the fruits of these trees that we've planted today.
We call it a Wahi kupuna because it's an ancestral place, and with it comes ancestral knowledge, or ike kupuna. And something that's missing in our generation, even the generation before us, and hopefully not the generation after us, is that kupuna knowledge, that ike kupuna. And it's so important because our kupuna held these mo'olelo, held these stories, these hula, these oli, for thousands of years. And to imagine that in only a few generations we could lose all that knowledge is something that we don't want to allow to happen here at Kahaluʻu Kūāhewa. So what we need to invest in today is our Aina and our community equally. Our Aina is going to be what serves and feeds and sustains our community. But in turn, our community needs to be educated. They need to understand the importance of Mālama Aina, aloha Aina, and they need to be provided the opportunity to sustain themselves and sustain their community as well. Because once they understand the importance of what Mālama Aina and aloha Aina is, from there we can grow as an island community.
As funders looking to invest in Hawaii and well-being of our communities and our Aina, is really to invest in community-based leadership, and looking to the leaders that already exist in communities throughout Hawaii who are already doing the work, finding the solutions to these problems, hold generational knowledge of place, and have the social and cultural capacity to engage in meaningful ways to make meaningful impact in our communities as a starting place. But also investing in the cultivation of new generations of place-based leaders that are going to continue to emerge in places if we continue to create the ecosystem for the cultivation of new leadership.
Hewa na makake na aku o Kūāhewa oi.